Good evening. Welcome to The Next Word. I'm your host, Chris Warnke, and tonight we're going to talk about the richness of Africa, and specifically the country of Ghana, one of the most stable countries and fastest growing economies in West Africa. We are so honored to have His Excellency Barfuor Adjei-Barwuah, who is the ambassador from Ghana to the United States and really knows the United States very well, having spent many years in 2 universities here in the United States. And Ambassador, we're so lucky to have you tonight, and thank you very much.
And thank you for having me.
Oh, and your country is wonderful. What a rich country in so many ways.
Yeah, it certainly is, and I do hope that we are going to exploit the riches, to benefit our population and to a certain extent the rest of the world.
And the United States has benefited from the people that have come from Ghana to live here.
Yeah, because we have had a 60-year relationship with the U.S., and you do have, very good pockets of Ghanaians all across the U.S.
Oh, no, absolutely.
And quite a lot of them have been extremely contributive, to American life and the American economy.
And physicians, people in the medical, people in technology, people. I mean, you've really
and quite a number of them in the banking and financial world as well.
Really, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because in Ghana, just from what you're a model of this, but you did your master's at the University of Wisconsin
in Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm. You did your PhD at the University of Indiana,
in Bloomington.
Right, and you're probably unlike. I mean, a number of Ghanaians that I know have gone on to get their doctorates, and it's a very educated population.
Sure. Yeah, we are reasonably educated. The education system, at least in my time, had been very good. And the country promised to deliver, on training and education. And it did deliver. And in fact, right now, the government we have now, has made education up to high school level, free.
We have, right?
Yeah, so it basically guarantees every Ghanaian child.
Wow, that's great.
Education up to the age of 18.
Right. And then they can, and then after, of course, universities.
After that, then they can go to the university.
Right.
I suppose on the basis of the country's priorities, people can be supported up to a point by way of other grants or scholarships or something. But then at the same time, you would expect that, like in all other countries, some students may have to find a way of supporting themselves, again, with a view to making sure that they are well equipped, they have employable skills with which to participate in the development of the economy.
But I've heard for years now, over 20 years, Ghana has put a tremendous amount of emphasis on technology, training its people.
Sure.
And that's another reason why, as a country, it's done so well.
We've always tried very hard to improve on our technological skills. Maybe we haven't moved, fast enough insofar as IT and others are concerned. But I do know that, for instance, the University of Science and Technology in Kumasi has produced a vehicle before, and it didn't get enough support to actually improve on it. And I recall that the first set of traffic lights in Ghana were manufactured at the University of Science and Technology.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And there is an area in Kumasi called Magazine. It's basically dominated by auto repair, spare parts, and whatnot. And if you need an automobile part, and they couldn't fabricate it in Kumasi, at Magazine for you, then you may have to go to the original manufacturers to find one.
Really?
Yeah,
wow.
People are that resourceful, and they are that adaptive, to technology.
That's probably. So switching into from technology to tourism.
Sure.
I know that's something we've talked about. You had in your previous role, you were
I
involved.
was the executive director of the Ghana Tourist Board.
Right.
Yeah. And at that time, we did introduce quality issues like hotel inspections, standards, grading, and then because we do have a lot of touristically very attractive areas, we are now trying to improve on access, improve on facilities, improve on service.
Hospitality,
So the whole hospitality industry is being sort of revived and revamped. And fortunately, a lot of the international hotels are now moving into Ghana. Yeah, so I'm quite sure that we are going to, as it were, recapture what we set out to do. Yeah, because there is a lot of attraction in Ghana. And I always remember American tourists, running down the streets in Accra, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. in the morning, because there was considerable safety.
Wow, that's great.
And there is still a lot of safety. Yeah.
And you're so easy. The flights from Washington direct. Certainly we're in Maryland here, but I know you have a sizable population in the state of Maryland, but you have direct flights.
Yeah, there is
and it's not that long. I mean, it's...
No, it's only about...
What, 8 hours?
7 hours.
7 hours,
8, yeah.
Yes.
And you can fly from Dallas to Accra.
Accra, right.
In one hop. And you can also fly from New York to Accra in one hop.
That's great.
So we are very accessible when it comes down to international travel.
Now, the closest I got to Accra was from Togo.
I see.
And I saw it.
That's next door.
Right, next door.
Yeah.
So you're bordered by the country of Togo?
Yeah. We have Togo on the east.
East.
Ivory Coast on the west.
Right.
Burkina Faso in the north.
Guinea Faso,
and the Atlantic to the south.
In the south, right. And that's where you have the beautiful beaches.
We do.
So I saw amazing advertising when I was recently abroad.
Yeah.
And the beaches were phenomenal.
Yeah.
But it's not just the beaches. It's really it's the foliage and all the. I mean, it's it's a beautiful country.
It is. We have a very beautiful country, and in fact, in the older years when Arabs used to come down south to trade, they normally came up to Kumasi, because Kumasi was the center of the gold industry. And
the gold. It's called the gold. It was the Gold Coast, right?
Sure.
Right.
And the Arabs are quoted to have said, Kina pasete o Kumasi nete paso paradis. That is, if you haven't been to Kumasi, you haven't been to paradise.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So it's that beautiful, yeah.
Yeah. It used to be called the Garden City of West Africa.
Really?
Yeah. We lost a bit of the garden,
it was called
but we are trying to put it back.
Wasn't it also called the Island of Peace? Of West Africa, because it's a stable country.
Yeah.
In fact, you just had your elections a year ago.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
You elected a human rights lawyer.
Yeah.
And he's committed to.
Yeah, he is committed to
building the economy, and
that's right.
making changes. Yeah. Yes.
It's a matter of ensuring that the average Ghanaian has a fair shake in life.
That's great.
So basically, our president is committed to improving on social services, improving on issues like healthcare, education, providing jobs through both agriculture and industry. Yeah, and also ensuring that people's personal freedoms are safeguarded.
Right, which is really important. And in agricultural, you're known for your coffee. A
little bit of
cocoa,
coffee.
Your cocoa production.
Sure.
Between Ivory Coast and Ghana, what you all produce maybe 80% of the cocoa?
Yes, we are.
In the world?
Yeah, and Ghana produces premium cocoa.
Premium cocoa.
Yeah, so
I can't tell the Ivory Coast.
Those manufacturers who use Ghana cocoa, they always have a higher price for their chocolates.
They do.
Yeah.
So that's been the mainstay.
Yeah. Cocoa has always been the mainstay, but gold has also always been, a big second. But then we had been producing, bauxite. We had been
bauxite's a huge.
So because we have a very mineral-rich, country. I think the Creator was very nice to us.
Yes.
Because whatever it takes to do something to develop a country, we have.
Right.
It just so happens that maybe sometimes the management aspect of things and the politics of things have been a little awry. Yeah, but we have the basis to develop a particularly wonderful country, and that is what we've set out to do this time.
And the population, I mean, in terms of the population, we're talking, what, 25, 26 million?
Yeah, just about 25, 26, yes.
English speaking with other...
English speaking, but because we are sandwiched by French speaking countries, now we all have to, try and get a little bit of French, just as the French are also trying to get a bit of English. So that at least communication will be easier between us.
Because you have, like I said, the Ivory Coast, of course, and then you have and then you have Togo. So it's a fascinating country, and I've always wanted to go.
Sure.
I've been all over the West African coast, but never to Ghana. So this is.
Then it means you haven't been to the best part of Africa yet.
Yes.
And see, we are very central to things.
Right.
If you walk down the equator, and you walked up the prime meridian, at the junction of the two, whichever direction you move, the first landmass you hit is Ghana.
Oh, wow.
So
amazing.
To a certain extent, we sit, at the center of the globe, and for that reason, if you have Ghana, you have access to virtually every country on the West African coast.
Wow.
Yeah, we are a gateway.
You're a gateway, yeah, absolutely. So you've been here, and look, you're no stranger to the diplomatic corps, having served as ambassador from Ghana to Japan, and which also included Singapore, was in Australia, another, right?
Yeah,
correct?
New Zealand, and
New
Papua
Zealand,
New
right? So
Guinea.
you're no stranger certainly to that. But you came here in July of 2017.
Yeah.
Correct. You presented your credentials to President Trump. So you've been here, and are we good to you? Do you like Washington?
Washington is very civilized, if I could use that word. And, at the moment, trying to plow, the diplomatic field is not exactly the easiest of things to do.
No.
But all the same, we are making some headway. People have been very supportive. And we are hoping that we will still continue to
You're going to have a lot of support. And you have a good population here. You have a great diaspora.
Yeah, we do.
You do. You really do. You have a very strong diaspora.
Yeah, we do have quite a bunch of Ghanaians, in the country, spread all over.
All over the United States.
In fact, I was particularly astounded when I learned that Worcester, Massachusetts, has 30,000 Ghanaians.
That's shocking.
Yeah, it's a sizable population.
It's very sizable in Worcester.
And you have a lot of Ghanaians in New York, Brooklyn in particular. Unfortunately, the Brooklyn fire claimed, the lives of 6 of them.
I know that is.
But we do have Ghanaians who are making a go in the States.
Oh, absolutely. Sure. And again, it comes back to the education. We're going to take a break. I know we're going to be a short video also that you'll get to see truly the Ghana at its best.
Yeah.
And we'll take a short break and we'll come back and then we'll talk about you, your plans.
Okay, no problem.
You're watching The Next Word. We're going to take a short break and we'll be right back.
Maybe you can make retirement happen. After all, you made her college years happen. Opening that education savings account when she was little. Spearheading a campus tour. And another, and another, and another, and another. Bam! Deciphering financial aid. She was like, what? But now she's like, you aced planning for college. Now get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Chris Warnke, and tonight we're having a conversation with His Excellency, the Ambassador from Ghana to the United States. And boy, I'll tell you, and I should say, of course, Ghana being one of the most progressive democracies on the continent of Africa. But beyond just its people and the richness of its culture and the beauty of the landscapes, and I mean, you have everything. You have the beautiful sea, you have, the mountains, you have, I mean, it's a country I've always wanted to go to, and the
Yeah.
colors and the fabrics and the, I mean, it's
Yeah,
just-
we have a plethora of fabrics, fauna, and I think it would be a very enjoyable country for any visitor.
Yes.
Yeah, and even for those of us who are native, there are certain areas that we go to and you just tell yourself, wow. And for those who like to take to the water, for instance, we have the largest man-made lake in the world.
Really?
Yeah, because when the Volta Dam was created, it came with this, huge lake.
Oh, this I didn't know.
Yeah, which at the moment we're trying to develop transportation on it, but it's also available for all kinds of water sports. Yeah.
Oh, that's a wonderful
Yeah. It's
idea, recreational
it-
tourism.
Yeah, and for those
aspect
people who would want to actually invest in the hospitality industry, tourism generally, there are more than enough opportunities for them to make a good return
Right.
on a good investment.
And one thing, too, which I think is of interest, speaking of hospitality, and having a number of schools here in the United States have partnered with your
Yeah,
universities
with some
in
schools,
Ghana,
yeah, sure.
like the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, and others, correct?
Sure.
That and that's actually
Yeah,
very
yeah, and I think
encouraging also.
Yeah, we would want to encourage a lot of exchanges,
Yes,
between
yes.
schools and universities and such. In fact, just before the winter struck, there was a Ghanaian choir, youth choir, touring the States.
Oh,
Yeah, and the kinds of music that they introduced to the American public, you would love to hear them.
oh my God, that's great.
They have this rendition of the Hallelujah chorus. I'm quite
Really?
sure every handle would be very proud to
Really?
hear that.
Well, I'd love to hear
Yes,
that.
sure.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, we'll try and get them back,
Yes.
next year, to at least widen their appeal.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, that's in terms of I know you have the whole United States to have to.
Sure.
I mean, this is your your
Yeah.
platform.
A
as they
whole
say.
continent.
A whole continent to have to,
Yeah.
But you grew up in. I mean, you went to school in Indiana.
Yeah.
You went to school in Wisconsin.
Sure.
The Midwest is a very nurturing and I think always from my. Not that I've ever lived in the Midwest,
Sure.
but
Mhm.
it's I think the people are very kind. I think they're very
Yeah.
welcoming. I think
Exactly, because I came to Wisconsin and Indiana in the roaring 60s.
Oh
when
wow, wow.
the
That's
civil rights
interesting.
movement was on, and all that. But I cannot, with my hands on my heart, say that I had any difficulties whatsoever insofar as relationships were concerned
great.
and such. I know I had 2 host families. One of them, the man was a fireman, for most American firemen, very well built and all that. And a friend of mine told him that there was this young lady that I knew, and she suggested we go to the lakefront, and it was about midnight. The snow was about that high. We just went to the lakefront, walked into some of the lanes and such. And then the next day, when we went to see, this my host family, my friend told him that I'm not scared of the cold, and therefore we went to, this.
What?
He just stared at me and he said, "Well, I didn't know you could be that stupid." So I just, so you go to the lakefront with the lake that piled, the snow piled that high, and you happen to be going there with a white girl
With a white, oh
in
my God.
Wisconsin. Somebody could have buried you in the snow.
And buried you. Oh my God, that's a great story. Oh, my God.
Usually
In the 60s. This was in the 60s.
Oh yeah,
so
it
wow.
was. Until he said that, I didn't see the big deal.
Right.
Yeah, but I suppose it could be one of those. But I never really had a bit of a problem at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I left. As soon as more or less I graduated from Indiana.
And then you went back. Yeah.
I went back home, mainly for 2 good reasons. I was very convinced that the country I left was going to be better for me than the States.
Yes.
And then secondly, I missed my mom.
Oh, that's great.
So I just
you went back.
Went home.
That's a good reason. That's the best reason.
Yeah, yeah, I did. Yeah, so.
And you haven't done so badly.
I guess not. You know,
no.
My country has been good to me,
yes.
and I think.
But you've been good too. I mean, you're a great representative
I'm
here.
I'm just trying to play my little part.
Yeah.
In also making it possible for my country to be good for the others. You can't help but feel sort of comfortable and warm and proud that those are your countrymen.
Right.
Yeah, because they are very well behaved. You know, they work hard for whatever it is that they are getting. I had this experience in Melbourne, Australia, when I was the High Commissioner there. I went to visit the Chief Justice, and he made a comment, oh, it doesn't look like there are too many Ghanaians in Melbourne. And I said, oh, there are more Ghanaians in Melbourne than there are in Sydney. And then he said, oh, in that case, they must be good citizens. I don't see them in my courts.
Oh, that's true.
But that's the typical Ghanaian.
Right,
yeah,
right. That's a typical Ghanaian. No,
very law-abiding.
Very law-abiding, which is, and hard-working. In this country, the ones,
Oh, yeah, they certainly are.
And I look at a lot of the African diaspora here, and certainly within the Washington metropolitan Maryland area. And you have the Ethiopian American community, you have the Ghanaian American, you have the Senegalese. I mean, you have very hardworking.
Yeah, they excuse me. They all have to recognize that you don't, as it were, leave your home and go some places and loaf about. And then also, quite a lot of them always look back and try to make a contribution whilst they are here. Because I do believe, for instance, that there isn't much comfort sitting on somebody's front porch and watch your house burn.
Right.
Because after your house has been burned down, the owner of the front porch will pace around a few times and then ask you, so when are you going home? Knowing very well that there's no home for you to go to.
Right.
So one way or the other, you always have to balance it in terms of always looking back as to what exactly is happening.
You're a wise man.
Sure. So
no, you're a...
one has to always bear that in mind.
So you're, can we talk about this? You have your new president, as we said, is a human rights, that was his training and his career.
I believe the thing about him is that he has a certain commitment to the country. And then also, he takes a long view. And because of the long view, you realize that there is always this thing about him trying to make sure that you pace it in such a way that the jigsaw would always fall into place. Of course, like everybody else, supported by a variety of people, you sometimes might not find everybody looking at it the same way as you look at it. But the fact of the matter is that then becomes the kernel of leadership.
Right.
Absolutely. So even though you expect people to have a variety of ideas, a myriad of visions and whatnot, there is always going to be the path that you would want to drive your country through. And that is where you demonstrate your leadership mettle to make sure that we do what is right for the majority of the population.
Absolutely.
And I think he's good at it.
Well, all his life he's been committed to people.
Yeah, sure.
Through his
and
record and his work and his...
A certain kind of resilience on his part. For somebody who contested elections 3 times before he came into power. Yeah. And even the 3 times...
His patience.
Yeah.
Resilience, patience.
The second one, we had to contest it. It went to the Supreme Court. We believe that the judgment was a bit awry. But somehow or the other, he felt that, okay, if that is what the court says, let the rule of law take its course.
Yeah.
And he stayed the course. So in this last election that he won by a landslide. It's never happened.
Right. He won by,
Mm-hmm.
over what, 54?
By a very wide margin.
A very wide margin.
Yeah, and I think he is going to do what he has to do to reward the country for giving him that kind of solid mandate.
And he's coming?
Yeah, he's coming down in February.
That's great.
To have a relationship with the National Governors Association.
Right.
Yeah, he's coming to address the 50 governors. And I'm quite sure that he would make a mark, with the governors, because we believe that even though, the central administration is there, the governors in their own right are also very influential and very powerful people. Yep. And especially where at the moment the central plank of our program is to get American business and industry to go and invest in Ghana. The governors can be very instrumental. In getting that message through.
It's extremely shrewd and smart.
Yeah, I suppose.
Move to come here and to speak to the governors, because they're the ones that are going to promote their own companies.
And very happily the governors invited him, and he also accepted to come in.
That's wonderful. I look at the story of the Premier of China before he was Premier.
Yeah.
He came to Iowa, and he made up, he wanted to focus on a little small town in Iowa, and he did. And he created a relationship, a sister city relationship. When he came back as Premier, he went to this town. Yeah. And since then, a lot has happened from Iowa and China in this instance.
Yeah. That is what human relations is like. Yeah. I'm quite sure if I were in his position, I would certainly visit Milwaukee.
Yes.
I would certainly visit Bloomington.
And
I would also visit Louisville, because I did my PhD dissertation on Louisville.
Oh, you did? How fascinating.
Kentucky.
Wow. Really interesting. So you had a interesting background.
But I would definitely
be
visiting.
So good. That's why you're so good being here and doing what you are doing today, and because you have that. You've had that experience.
Yeah,
which
I suppose America gave me...
You can't create that with...
some good training.
America gave you
I think so, because the universities that I went to, the population was so very varied. Right. So you basically bumped into the whole of the world on those two campuses. And the curriculum was good and advantageous. Yeah, and therefore... I would always sort of doff my hat to those two institutions for giving me a very good base. Yeah.
And that's why America is, that's why it is so great, because it is diverse and welcoming. And welcoming.
It's the diversity and the fact that it's welcoming that makes America different.
Yes.
It just so happens that these days a lot of people have started having difficulties recognizing or staying with the idea that the original American ideals, are being respected, sort of.
Well, this has been wonderful. We ran out of time. So thank you.
And
to be continued.
Yes.
To be continued. There's more to talk about.
Because we have to, at some point, maybe with your kindness, come back to tell, your viewers that, we told you we're going to do this. We've done it, and we are doing that.
But you have to come back, definitely.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Sure.
You've been watching The Next Word. Thank you, and have a wonderful evening. Good night.